Hey, this is Jonesy, the host of Weird AF News, and I'm really lucky because I'm getting to do a one-on-one interview with a very special individual who has an extremely fascinating profession that I thought my listeners would be interested to learn about. And this is Lisa VanArsdale, and she is a professional cuddler here in Los Angeles. Lisa, I want to thank you so much for taking the time.
My pleasure.
Let's begin by shattering some myths about professional cuddlers. I'm sure when people hear the term, they immediately think this is a sex worker, some edgy thing like that. But that's not what's going on, right? This
Definitely not.
This is a very serious profession. People in the world are bereft of human contact and human tender touches, and this is what they come to you for. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people hear me say that I'm a professional cuddler and they assume that I'm either making a joke or that it's like a nice way of saying that I'm a prostitute or something like that. But that's definitely not the case. Sometimes I say I'm a professional snuggler and then they're like, oh, what do you smuggle? And I'm like, no, that's not it either.
Although you might make more money if you're smuggling.
That might be slightly more lucrative, less helpful for humanity.
More jail time, too.
That as well, yeah. But basically, I go to someone's house or hotel or whatever and get paid an hourly rate to snuggle with them. And we lay there and we cuddle and they usually want to talk. And it's meant to be therapeutic because cuddling lowers your blood pressure. It releases all of the feel-good chemicals that your body produces, dopamine, serotonin. What's the one that makes you trust people? I'm blanking on the name of it. But that one too. I can't remember the name. But it all of those things boost your immune system and reduce your stress levels. So it's meant to be like a therapeutic practice.
Now, when you're cuddling with someone in this setting, do you normally prefer if they don't speak because it interrupts the...
It's whatever they prefer. On a rare occasion, someone will just want total silence, but most people want to connect verbally as well, so we'll shoot the shit and talk about whatever.
So in addition to you physically giving them some sort of relief and support, you find yourself kind of being a psychiatrist at the same time? I
mean, I would never pretend to be qualified for that sort of thing, but everyone needs someone to listen sometimes.
Yeah, and you don't need a degree to just be a good listener.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To just, have empathy and everything.
How did you end up in this business?
Well, back when I lived in New York, I had a job that I really liked but wasn't very lucrative, taking care of kids for far below minimum wage. And I needed to come up with a side hustle that would allow me to keep my schedule with my kids but supplement that income. So I read an article called 100 Ways to Make Money on the Side that you've never heard of or some shit like that. And it was on that list and I was like, wow, this is the job I was born to do.
What year was that?
This was 4 years ago.
Okay. It's a relatively new profession.
Yeah.
Okay, so then from there, where did you go? How did you find out about it? Did you call up an agency or something?
Well, I was like, this is New York. We have everything here. Let me pop on Google. And I found a nationwide company, the first nationwide snuggling company, the Snuggle Buddies. And I applied and gave them a very heartfelt interview and was hired. And the rest is history.
During the interview process, do they actually have you cuddle with an employee or someone?
No.
No, they didn't do that? I'm surprised. I would imagine they would do that.
No.
What were some of the qualifications that they like? What are some of the qualifications that make you a good snuggler?
Sincerity. That's number one. You can be good at anything that you're sincere about, And, I just spoke in a sincere manner about why I wanted to do this and why I thought it was an important thing to offer the world. And they went for it. So, yeah.
And do you remember your first customer?
I do. He was an Indian man. It was during the Super Bowl
He lost a lot of money. And he's like, I need a cuddle right now.
No, being from India, I don't think he cared about football. But his wife was back in India, and he was in New York for work for like a couple years or something. And he was very lonely. And he came over during the Super Bowl, and I remember he brought me a bottle of wine, which was nice.
Oh, that's cool.
And we snuggled for 2 hours.
2 hours of snuggling.
And then he left, and I watched Katy Perry's halftime show.
With his wine. He enjoyed his wine.
Yeah.
Now, a 2-hour one, any sleeping on a long session like that? Do they get into, do these customers, like, they'll fall
Almost
asleep?
Almost never. People occasionally doze off, but I remember when I was younger and had fewer experiences, whenever I got to snuggle with a guy just like organically in life, being far too excited about it to sleep. And I think that that's true for a lot of my clients. They really want to like be present, and sleeping would not be. Right.
They're paying an hour. They don't want to sleep. It's there are certain services you really want to be awake for. That sounds like one of them. Now, you've also, since you've been in LA, you've had some celebrities that you've cuddled with. We won't mention any names. But how's that experience been for you?
This last one was delightful. Mm-hmm. Others in the past have not been so delightful.
I see.
But yeah, it seems like a different culture out here. People are a little more easygoing and laid back. And most of my sessions here in general have been full of positive energy for the most part.
Including the ones with celebrities?
Yes.
Yes. You mentioned to me that you've been cuddling with comedians.
Yes.
So I'm a comedian. No, let's talk about what do you think it is about comedians that makes us like sort of cuddle needy, or I don't know what to say. Like, does that make sense?
Well, yeah, that's a loaded question for me.
Yeah. Are we messed up?
No, it's fine. It's fine. Why don't I give you like the background of that? So when I started watching comedy really regularly a few years ago, like before I even considered dabbling in stand-up, which I occasionally do.
That's how we met.
Yeah. I had an opportunity where I was at a show and they asked me what I do. Like, it was a crowd work scenario. And the entire show very quickly became about my work. They had me come on stage and cuddle with people and things like that.
Of course. And if I was a comedian doing crowd work and you said that, I'd be all over it. I was
an answer to their prayers, for sure.
It's unique. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people hear it and they don't believe that it's even real.
Yeah, and that was partially the issue, because then one of the comedians who was on that show, Godfrey, actually.
Oh, I know Godfrey.
Who that is.
Oh, and he's so funny. He's one of my favorite comics.
Good for you.
He's great. Not a fan.
He asked if I would snuggle with him, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. Also, you're super hot. We should do other things, too, in another situation. And
he says this to you.
I said that to him.
Oh, you said that to him?
After he asked me to snuggle with him.
He is hot.
I no longer feel that way. But,
okay. All right. We don't have to get into that. But
but we snuggled, and it ended really, really poorly.
Oh, that's a shame.
But that's kind of what got my brain turning. Like, why are comedians like this? Why do they lie to you? Why are they cruel? But then also, like, so wonderful and charming and delightful on stage. And also because I was toying with the idea of getting into comedy, I was like, well, what am I good at? I'm good at cuddling, and I'm good at talking to people. Why don't I snuggle with comedians and pick their brains and see what makes them tick?
Mm-hmm. I was thinking that you were going to say that comedians are loners, and this makes us the perfect, because we kind of are loners. We perform alone, we write alone. You're on stage alone.
Oh,
it's not like you're in a band. You have the support of like your other bandmates, or even if you're in an improv troupe, you get your support of your group. This is a very lonely journey for us.
It is, and from my observation, a lot of comedians tend to turn to substance abuse.
And yes, 100%.
To also be like very, very in need of validation. A comedian who is a good friend of mine in Australia said that most comedians have a gap in their brain that makes them want the approval of strangers.
Yeah, I feel like I have that as well.
And that that's a dangerous thing.
Sure. 100%. And there's a lot of substance abuse going on, so I think you're bringing a good service. I think comedians need to cuddle more. I mean, we just lost a comedian recently to suicide.
Precisely.
And he was someone who was a very lonely individual, never had I listened to some podcasts where he's interviewed. Mm-hmm. He never had a girlfriend his whole life, 48 years old, never had a girlfriend. I think a lot of us are...
And yet was well-loved by many people,
sure,
plenty of whom didn't know him.
Loved by a lot of strangers, but didn't have intimacy with another individual, which is what you...
Precisely. And when you're chasing the glory of the masses or whatever, you forget the things that you actually need. And the celebrity who I was snuggling with last week, I didn't know much about him. And so I asked him while we were laying there, what are you in? What would I recognize you from? Any movies, whatever? And he said, I don't want to talk about it because if you've never heard of them, it's going to leave me feeling very empty. And that was sad to me because even though I didn't know much about him, and keep in mind, probably 20 years younger than him, so whatever he's done might be before my time anyway.
Yes,
so I wouldn't be the judge.
Sure,
but,
it totally is.
I was like, but you're a delightful person. I'm having a wonderful time with you. Mm-hmm. I see so much value in you as an individual. I would hope that that would count for something and not just whether or not someone recognizes you from whatever project,
Yeah, we're sick like that. And so what you're doing is a good service, I think. Have you had an instance where you're cuddling with someone and they tried to take it to an inappropriate place, like a sexual place, like it was not, they thought this was something else? I'd imagine this happens, right?
Godfrey, for one, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
But it occasionally happens.
And how do you handle this?
Well, let me preface by saying it doesn't happen nearly as often as you would think.
Yeah, I would think it would happen I would guess it happened a third of the time.
Not anywhere near that.
Wow, that's great that it doesn't happen that much.
Yeah, because for people who find me through the website, they have to check a box saying they understand that to use this service, you need to behave, that it's not a sexual thing, and that if they act up, they'll be banned from using the website. Okay. So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, But on the rare occasion that it does happen, and I mean rare, the protocol is to redirect their hands or whatever, mm-hmm. and the first time, and then the second time be like, okay, so I'm sorry, but you can't touch me there, as you know, or whatever, mm-hmm. That thing that teachers do. They're like, I'm not sure why you're doing that because I know that you're intelligent and know the rules, mm-hmm. and that kind of shames them out of it usually. It's never gotten to a point where you go to step 3, which is where you say if you do that again, I'm leaving.
Okay.
So I've not had too much of a problem with that.
What about people that you've cuddled with who there's been a situation, there's got to be some sanitary situations, maybe some people that don't smell very, is this ever become an issue? Well, that's something that's
outlined on the website as well.
Okay,
people
cool.
Know
right.
that they're
that's
supposed to not have nasty breath or be super sweaty or anything.
And perhaps you should probably shower before this happens, right?
Try not to be gross. So that doesn't come up very often. Every now and then someone will have kind of gross breath, and I'll just kind of position myself away from it,
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I'm trying to think of what are the other pitfalls to something like this. But yeah, that was... okay. So the agency, mm-hmm. do they give you some sort of guidelines on the cuddling, or they just say, you know how to cuddle, right? They say you do what you naturally do as cuddling, or do they say, we have done some studies and we find that this is the maximum cuddling comfort zone right here, and they show you a slideshow, or how does that go about? Any instructions like that, or they let you do your own thing?
The websites I use now have a pretty long leash. They just want to make sure that you're abiding by the law and being appropriate and snuggling and not doing other things, and that clients are respecting you as well and that they get their cut. But the first website I worked for, made use of a book called The Cuddle Sutra, which I personally found a little underwhelming when I read it, but it was just like an outline of various cuddle positions with lots of flowery language surrounding them.
The Cuddle Sutra? I've never heard of this.
Yeah, it's not much. Yeah.
Okay, all right. What works best in your professional opinion?
Like as far as like a snuggling position or whatever.
Yeah, when you're approaching it.
My go-to to start off, this sounds so silly describing this, is like for the person to be laying down and then I like kind of insert myself under their arm, like head on their chest or shoulder type situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine there's a lot of improv involved as well then. In addition to that, you may start in this position, but like then depending on the size of the individual, if they're tall and lanky, it might go this way.
Yeah,
you got to be very
pins and needles in their arms, or they want to do something, or this is uncomfortable, XYZ. Yeah, you just kind of go with the flow, and eventually, like, oh, is this not working? Okay, do you want to be the little spoon? Right. You know, like, yeah.
And women to men ratio, have you cuddled both?
I've only cuddled men.
Okay.
I think I've gotten requests from women like maybe twice, and both times I turned it down only because I've never snuggled with a woman as an amateur, so who the fuck am I to do it as a professional?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I understand.
That's how I feel. And also,
Sure.
I don't know how comfortable I would be in that situation, and I feel like if a straight woman is actively choosing to snuggle with another woman rather than a man, she's probably in a pretty bad way and deserves to be with someone who's 1,000% confident in that situation, and that wouldn't be me. So they deserve better.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Wow, you really are a pro at this.
Thank you.
I have a thing about this. What I think is making this sort of occupation and service in demand. And I think that tell me what you think about this, because I'm sure you have a theory as well. People are spending too much time online on social media,
absolutely,
and not having enough one-on-one human interaction.
Totally. And I won't even say too much time, but I'll say that like the dynamic has shifted. So much of what we do is behind a screen. We find dates on Tinder. We have arguments via text. You know,
That's right.
Like so many of your close friends you only keep in touch with via Facebook anymore. You know, like we're behind screens so much of the time that people aren't having as many in-person, tangible, hands-on experiences. And as that continues, I think the demand for snuggling is only going to increase.
Yeah. And science also is aware that certain chemicals are probably needed on a regular basis for you to stay as a level-headed human being.
Oh, absolutely. And screen time gets in the way of some of that.
Yeah.
Like if you're looking at your phone before bed, and let's be real, we're all doing that, and totally shouldn't be. It blocks your whatever it is that makes you feel fatigue. I can't think of it, but it blocks that.
Yeah, your shutdown process is interrupted.
Exactly.
Yeah. A lot of that's going on because we're in the screens, and a lot of us aren't getting that real love chemical one-on-one with other people because we're in the screens.
Absolutely.
So this is really great. Oh man, this is so cool. Thank you so much for doing this. Can you tell the listeners where they can find information about you, your website, this kind of thing, your social media? Yeah,
if you go to my website, which is pretty lackluster, www.lisavanarsdale.wordpress.com, and Jonesy will put a link to that.
I'll put a link to that.
My last name is a mouthful. You can go to the About Lisa page, and there's links to a bunch of my interviews from all over the world. And you can also read my blog, which doesn't typically have anything to do with snuggling, but it's there.
Okay.
So. And
if somebody at some other part of the world, nowhere near you, wants to hire someone, is this a service that's available pretty much anywhere in the U.S.? Where would someone find it? Oh,
absolutely. Yeah, the websites are mostly nationwide at this point. You can go to cuddlecompanion.com, cuddlecomfort.com. They're both slightly different. The Snuggle Buddies still functions as well, the snugglebuddies.com. And I think there might be some local pop-ups throughout various regions as well.
Cool. And are you on the social media? Is that something you want to give them as well?
People can find me if they want. It's just my name. I'm not big on
Lisa
social media.
VanArsdale, VanArsdale.
Well done.
Oh, I could have got your business card. Well, thank you so much. We're going to cuddle now, guys. I know you're jealous. Check out Lisa, and I'll put links to her website and social media there. And please take some opportunity to get your cuddle on, because we know that life is hard, and we need some feel-good chemicals. And let's not, let's not hold back and keep this sort of one-on-one intimacy with another human being phenomenon that we need. Don't keep that out of your life. Bring it into your life, even if you have to hire somebody. Which now, if you didn't know, now you can do that.
I'm available.
Lisa is very available. You do not have to be a celebrity. She cuddles regular people too.